Good morning or good afternoon, happy Friday or Thursday. I think at least one class sees me on Thursday. I think the message here is, doesn't matter. Um, wow. Normally I shoot indoors, but today I thought, yeah, it's a beautiful day. I'll come outside and shoot on the balcony. And it's actually quieter on the balcony than it is in my house. I've got James watching Peppa Pig or Iron Man or something. I've got a wife dealing with accountancy issues. And we've got a street with absolutely nobody in it, no vehicles moving around. All I can hear is birds, which is a bit spooky, to be honest. It's all very post-apocalyptic. I don't think it's the end of the world, but I think if we were up one floor higher, we'd probably be able to see it from here. So, moving on. We've got through another week, a week of enforced distance learning for, well, whatever reason. Certainly isn't scientific, but reasons nonetheless. So I wanted to give you a slightly easier day today. Now we've been talking about contrast and comparative language because it's an important skill. It's a skill that we all use every day. Oh, noise. Wow, impressive. It's a skill we use every day when we're describing something, especially something that our audience might not be familiar with. And those are the kind of things that we need to describe the most. No one's going to describe what a tall bald man looks like because everybody can picture that, we're used to it, we see it all the time. But if you had to describe something like a Bigfoot or a Yeti, you'd certainly be describing something in more detail because other people don't have your frame of reference. So we use these descriptive terms because we absolutely have to, and being able to master them gives you an advantage over somebody who doesn't have those skills. So these things, although they're mundane enough, they are important. They're a valuable asset to you, especially if you're working with people. If you are lucky enough to have a career where you're face to face with people or you're explaining something to people, comparative language is going to be a vital everyday resource to you. So that's why I decided to include it in this week's curriculum. In fact, that's why I focused on it over several days, because it is something we use every day, but it's worth just looking at, and making sure that we know the importance of it, we know the value of it, we know why it exists, how it exists, and what the function is. And we've done that. Now, yesterday, I hope the ideas we discussed yesterday, another car. I hope the ideas we discussed yesterday have settled in your brain by now. Now, looking at that pyramid text where we compared the Egyptian and the Mayans, now I don't agree with everything that was said in the text. I don't agree with very much of what was said in the text. But the reason I chose it was because I wanted you to see what a university paper actually looks like. Now, this is something that would have been written by somebody only a couple of years older than you. Now, where you are now to where you need to be in a couple of years, how are you going to get there? How are you going to bridge that gap? And it's a big gap. It's a very big gap from where your English skills are at the moment to where they are going to need to be to meet a minimum international standard in this language. And that's why I wanted to do it. I think sometimes we need a little reminder of what the point of all this is. And the point of this is to give you these language skills so you can go on to further education, and so that you can go on to follow your dreams, to follow the path you want in life. Now, I know some of you have already given up, tuned out. I can't help those people, but the ones who haven't, please take this on board, that if you're planning to go into further education, this is the kind of standard that's going to be required of you. And for those reasons, we really do need to knuckle down and double our efforts. Now, another problem we've got is that in grade 12 now, we've moved the educational goalposts so that from now on, grade 12 is going to be teaching you to get through the English exam, which I don't think makes a lot of sense because the English exam at the national standard is very easy because it's brought down to the level of the nationalised schools, which can't reach our standard. So I don't think this is a productive use of our time. I think that in grade 12 we should be polishing you off, getting you really ready for the next step in your education. That isn't what's going to happen, and we have to make the most of it. Now that means that you have got to make up the shortfall for yourself. Now, how can you, as a student, get from where you are to where you need to be? How can we compare the situation where we are now in grade 11 in this school to the situation where you're going to need to be in a couple of years if you're going to further education, colleges, universities, that kind of thing? How are we going to get you to that point? And the bridge between the two comparative points is always change. Now, how do we make that change? Because the people who are able to make that change, they're the ones that succeed in life. The ability to change is very important. I think it's a Buddhist story where we had two trees. We had a big, strong, powerful tree and a small, young, flexible tree. And which one survived the hurricane? The small one, because it was able to bend with the change. They're the ones who survive. Now, to use another analogy and a slightly less sophisticated one, there was an old episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and that was a 1980s version of Star Trek. Probably the time where Star Trek hit its stride, and I know a lot of people would disagree with me, sci-fi fans. I thought Next Generation was probably the best of Star Trek, at least the first 5 years. I think it kind of went off the boil after that. Gene Roddenberry had died, and it was a great episode. Now, this is set 300-400 years in the future, something along those lines, and they find this space station floating around in space. They go aboard and they find five humans from Earth now who are dead. They find them frozen, dead. Story goes on, these people were frozen at the point of death so that they could be revived sometime in the future. And this was something that was actually happening in the 80s. It was fairly popular. People wanted to be frozen so they could be restored in the future when technology got to the point where we could bring people back from their diseases. That was a good idea. It was a good idea for a sci-fi story because it bridged the gap. It showed the comparison between a modern human and a future human. A human who's gone through all the things that we need to go through as a society to get us to the point in the future where we actually act like civilized race rather than a bunch of idiots following idiot leaders. It was a good episode, and these different characters from the present all went about their lives in different ways aboard the futuristic spaceship. There was a woman aboard, and she was focused on connecting. She didn't understand where she was. She didn't understand the future, of course, because of a lot of changes. So she was trying to connect. So they tried to connect her to family. They went through the database and tried to find if she had any relatives, and she found a great-great-great-great-granddaughter and connected with her. So she found a way back to life through a connection through family. Another one, he couldn't understand where he was at all. He was trying to work out how to get back to his business, how to get back to making money and being rich and being wealthy. And they were all trying to explain to him, those things don't matter here. You know, we've moved on past that. Your ideas are outdated. You need to change. And he couldn't change. And eventually he was the biggest idiot, and he just couldn't survive in that society. And the last one I remember specifically was a musician. And one of the characters said to him, you don't seem to be having any problem with this. And he said, no, it's just the same as it always was. You're just marching to the beat of a different drum. I don't care. I'm flexible. Same old world. People haven't changed that much. At the end of the day, we all want the same things. And it was him who had the easiest time in the future because he was the most willing and able to make the change. And that kind of flexibility is something that you need to learn, and you need to adapt into yourself. It's those people who have the easiest time in life and generally the most success. So the ability to compare, to form comparisons, and eventually to make the changes you need to make so that you can be better, that's what we need. Now, what causes us to change? Usually, it's some kind of emotional impact. Now, as you know, there are two human beings inside your head fighting for control. There's the brain and there's the heart. That's what we call them. Now, the mind is intelligent. The mind is, it's a computer that thinks, works out exactly what you need. And then you've got the heart saying, I want. Now, those two things don't often get along. The trick is to use one of them to motivate the other. If you can use your heart to motivate your brain to go away and think about how to do what you want to do, you'll have a much better chance of success. But you need that emotional core. That's what drives human beings. So today we're going to watch a short video that shows a man being impacted by an emotional event, a subtle one, that inspires him to change the way he sees the world. He's able to do what we call reframe his life. Now, reframing it, think of a picture inside a picture frame. If we had a picture of me inside a very old gold frame, all inlaid with lots of nice drawings and architecture, so it looked fantastic, you'd view the picture in a certain way. But if you took that picture out and put it in an old beat up wooden frame that was falling apart, the picture would look completely different because you'd be seeing it in a different way. So framing is all about the way we take the same events and look at them differently. So this man goes through a change, a comparative change, by looking at himself in a different way, by seeing a reflection of himself and comparing his situation with somebody who's in a situation that's even worse. And when he does compare to a person who's in a much more difficult situation, he realizes that things aren't as bad as he thought, and it just changes the way he looks at the world. So we're going to look at that movie, mostly because I think I think we all need a rest. I don't want to push you too far. I don't want to drive you too far. And really what I want you to do this weekend is to think about how you're going to change, from the place you are now to the place you're ultimately going to need to be in a couple of years when you're facing further education. And the way you're going to get there is unfortunately not through school. We don't have time in 4 lessons a week to get you to that standard, because I've only got you now for a few months, and unfortunately because of the situation around the world, we don't know where we're going to be. I don't know if I'll still be teaching you. I don't know if the school's going to stay open. I have no idea what the future holds. We're in very uncertain times. But I do know one thing that can get you where you need to be, and that's reading books. I strongly recommend that you take responsibility for your own education, at least to a degree. And I know that seems very unfair when you're paying a premium to go to an expensive private school in a country where private schools are rare. I know it's not fair. The world isn't fair. It really, really isn't. I need you to go and get a book. I need you to open a book. I need you to read it. I need you to enjoy it. Start dumb. Start with a book that doesn't challenge you at all, and enjoy it. Just get used to the idea that reading is actually fun, and it'll automatically, unconsciously put the grammar points, the words, the vocabulary into your brain in the right way. It'll help you to learn how to read and write better. It'll get your writing to where it needs to be. Start dumb. Then start finding books that challenge you. Harry Potter series is actually a very good choice. I don't think it's a brilliant series of books. I really don't. But it starts aimed at very young children, and because they were written pretty fast, those children were growing up. So the books were growing up with them. So as the characters were aging, they were appealing to exactly the same students, exactly the same children as they got older. So the books got smarter as they went along. The story didn't, but the writing did. So follow the Harry Potter books, follow any of the series, get into it. Start looking at the vocabulary and start looking up the words, start putting them into your vocabulary. Then start finding concepts you're interested in, and then go to non-fiction. Start looking at non-fiction books and reading more and more. Doesn't matter what you're reading about. All education has value. All learning is worth it purely for its own sake, because everything you learn will add to the sum of knowledge that you have about the world around you. So every single thing that you read will take you one step closer to where you want to be. Doesn't matter what it is. The people who are making it in this world, the Bill Gates of this world, no matter what you think of him, he reads a book every week. All the successful people are readers. This is why. School, as a system around the world, doesn't take you all the way to where you need to be. It doesn't entirely fail, I'm not saying that, but it certainly doesn't entirely succeed. The people who succeed are the people who take, from a young age, the responsibility to teach themselves. Okay? I can only take you so far. We have a phrase in England: you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I can extend all the information you need to you. How much of it you absorb is up to you. But too many times I see, especially online, teacher, can I not do this? I'm tired. Teacher, I want to sleep. Teacher, I was enjoying a nap. Great, I can't help you when you're doing that. Read some books. They will help you get where you're going. And books, for the most part, are cheap or free. I know if you go into a Monument bookshop, books are ridiculously overpriced. But there are not that many great books out there written today. The really good books are written some time ago, and most of those are now free. You can find them to download on various websites. I was a big fan of Isaac Asimov. I'm rethinking that in modern times, because he was talking about a lot of things that I now see as part of a very, very nasty agenda against the human race. But as well as his novels, there are thousands of short stories he wrote, literally thousands, and they're all available for free on the internet. There are whole websites with all of his stuff on it. There are short stories all over the internet, there are books all over the internet, there are free resources you can download, even if you have to steal them. I don't care. I don't care if an author's making 10 cents off of the book, or if you're reading for free and learning something. I'm much more interested in you learning something. So, the change you need to make is a change you are going to have to make, and it's only you that can do it. So think about that this weekend. That's going to be your homework assignment. You're going to be thinking about what you can do to get where you need to be, because the world around you isn't going to get you there on your own anymore. It isn't. You can't trust it to. Let's get over this idea of this not being fair, or of this not being just, or of this just sucking. It does. The people who are going to survive this situation and do well are the people that deal with it, move along, and get on with what they've got to do. Okay? Those are the people I'll respect, and those are the people that are going to make it. Take responsibility for yourself. Get some books, download them, read them. I actually have a website with 2 free books on it right now, and a 3rd one coming any day. Free short stories, free articles, and I'm just one small guy who only started his website a month ago. There are thousands of free books out there. Get reading, okay? So your homework this weekend is to think about how you're going to get to the next stage. I have set you a formal homework. It's not very difficult, don't worry about it. So we're going to watch a movie now, an Ombletto short film, which I think explains how someone goes from where they are to where they need to be emotionally. Now the film doesn't take us all the way. It shows us the emotional impact and how that changes the person's outlook on life. You have to imagine how tomorrow happens. What happens to him tomorrow? What happens to him the day after? How does he then take that emotional impact and use it to change himself as a person? You have to work that out for yourself. So we're going to watch the movie now, and then I'm going to give you a small homework assignment, and you can start on that, and that's us for today. So enjoy your weekend. I will see you next week. Get a book and have fun reading it.